Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we have an early impression on one of my favorite houses, basically in the entire niche world. You know, this is up there with, I think, some of the best bang for your buck houses out there. In fact, if money was no issue for me, I would buy every single release this house made. The house is none other than Papillon, and the fragrance we're going to talk about today was released last year in 2021, and it is called, oh, it's not listed on here. It is listed here though. Spell 125. Okay, so Spell 125, what is it? Let me give you a little bit of a backstory before we talk about the fragrance. Let me read you the blurb, because this is a pretty, decent blurb. It's a good story. I like when a fragrance has a good backstory. So it says, in the Book of the Dead, Spell 125 represents a balance of light and dark, life and death, the compelling ceremony of weighing the deceased's heart against a feather, animate a delicate olfactory rendering of the lightness of the soul, with just a sliver of the underworld shadows. Rise in sparkles with the brightness of Siberian pine. Let salt and resin lap at your skin. An ethereal cleanse slick with wintergreen powders. A weightless shroud of lucent white ambergris lifts you. A glow of green sacra frankincense haunts you. Suspended in the lust of ylang-ylang, you float between this world and the next. Pretty good write-up, I have to give it to them. If Liz Moores came up with that on her own, bravo. By the way, she is an amazing interview, and if you go watch my channel, you will see the Liz Moores interview under drop-downs, under playlists. Go check that out if you haven't watched that. It's probably some of the best content on the channel, along with the interview with Russian Adam. But it says, our perfumer's inspiration. The 7th fragrance released in Papillon's 7th year as a house, on the 7th day of the 7th month. In ancient Egypt, the number 7 was considered a number of the gods, and it is these deep esoteric connections thread together the inspiration and composition for Spell 125. Everything about this perfume is entwined with magic, history, and ancient mystery. I loved the cyclical nature of creating Spell 125. I began the Papillon connection with Anubis, a perfume inspired by ancient Egypt and probably my favorite from the house. And it has been a pleasure to revisit this source and to close the circle from my first perfume to this, the 7th. Okay, so amazing backstory, gives me chills. But what about the fragrance? Well, first of all, if you have any experience in the fragrance world as a whole, and you are familiar with different brands, you will know that this fragrance immediately will remind you of a couple things. Number one, if you've ever smelled Perfumum Roma Arso, which I never have. Actually, to be fair, I've never smelled a Perfumum Roma. I know that's some sort of blasphemy, I'm sure. Speaking of Greek gods, one will probably come and strike me down right now, but I've never smelled a Perfumum Roma. But the other fragrance that this smells like is a fragrance I do own, thank God, because it is extremely expensive in these vintage formats. We're talking $500, $600, $700, $800, $900 a bottle. And this is called Filet by the house of Serge Lutens. And Filet is one of my favorite piney frankincense. Actually, interestingly enough, both fragrances use stone pine needles. Both fragrances use frankincense. Spell 125 uses Omani green frankincense, to be exact. And, you know, if you ever hear me talk about Filet, you'll notice that it's not only the resinous pieces of the sap from the tree, it's not only the green pine, but I also talk about this feeling of open air, of openness, of being in a forest and looking up at the sky and realizing just how small you are in regards to the big forest, the big trees, and then the sky above is even bigger, right? And that fresh air, when you're in a forest, the air always smells so fresh. And you know what I'm talking about if you've ever stood in the middle of a forest and just kind of let yourself just, unwind and take it all in, right? That's the feeling that Christopher Sheldrake captured in Fil en Aiguille. So I have worn this a couple times now. This is not the first time that I've worn it, but it is the first time that I've given it a full wear. So I knew what to expect, okay? I knew what to expect. And the other thing is during our interview with Liz Moores, during my interview with Liz Moores, she had mentioned that this is the fragrance that she used the most ambergris in by far. Someone asked her in the comments, because it was during a live stream, and they asked her, hey, which of your fragrances has the most ambergris? And she said, no question about it, Spell 125. Spell 125 uses the most ambergris, hands down. And I was like, wow, interesting, okay. And so I was very curious to try it. And this fragrance does not disappoint. It is absolutely stunning. The house never disappoints. I have never smelled a Papillon fragrance where I thought, man, this is kind of generic, or, it's kind of boring, or the ingredients don't smell high quality. No, every single time, it's spot on. And there's something to be said about consistency and trust. When you trust a house, which, I did buy bottles with my own money. These were not sent to me by Liz Moores. Liz Moores didn't even know who Ramsey was when I bought these bottles. But I have a bottle of Salome, which I love. And I put this at the very top of the Hyrax ladder. I did a top 5 Hyrax fragrances, and I think Salome is the most brilliant execution of Hyrax I've ever smelled. And Anubis, which I used to say Salome was my favorite, but I'm starting to think Anubis might be my favorite. My God, there's just something about, the resins and the way that they all come together to create this, crazy resinous, leathery, suede-y. Even the jasmine that comes through is beautiful. Egyptian jasmine. So making a full circle from Anubis, from Egypt, all the way back to, I think of Pharaoh sitting on the throne with this one, with Egypt. Book of the Dead. You know what I think of when I think of the Book of the Dead? And when I think of the fact that this Book of the Dead story, you know what it reminds me of? I'll show you. It reminds me of a very rare, hard to find fragrance from Guerlain. Not in smell, but in story and in feel, okay? Not smell necessarily, but feel. Yes, maybe even a little in smell. But this is called Jedi by Guerlain. And, one day I'm just going to douse myself in this. I'm just going to, just absolutely douse myself in this and enjoy it. Because perfume is made to be worn. It's not made to sit there and, it's made to be worn. So what? It's a rare fragrance, but if I want to wear it, I'll make that day the best day ever. And, there's a little bit of that feel. Jedi has this mysterious vibe to it. This is very mysterious, Spell 125. So I have a 2-hour dry down right here, and I have an 8-hour dry down right here. Okay, so let me take you through the scent. I would describe this as something that is green, very green, and resinous, but not green in the way that you're thinking. Think about Fil en Aiguille. If you smelled Fil en Aiguille, if you smelled Arceau, which I never have, but I have an idea of kind of what it's like, this is going to get you in the ballpark of what Spell 125 smells like. But Spell 125 starts out very piney, whereas Fil en Aiguille starts off almost smelling like you grabbed onto a tree and sap got on your hands. It starts piney and sappy. Spell 125 takes away that sappy aspect. So imagine textures now, okay? So it takes away that sappy aspect, and it sticks to this cleaner, fresher pine opening, okay? And one of the things that will instantly grab you, if you have experience with fragrances and with expensive notes like ambergris, this fragrance will instantly grab you because of the fact that it has one of the most beautiful executions of ambergris I think I've ever smelled. And it's there from the very beginning, from the very first spray, throughout the life of the fragrance. I feel like that ambergris is noticeable because it gives off this, here's the imagery that actually pops into my head. And you guys might think this is insane and makes no sense. But imagine ambergris floating in the sea, right? Imagine if you took that ambergris and stuck it in the forest. Imagine ambergris floating in the forest. Insane, crazy, insane, silly imagery, okay? I know that. But that's what kept popping into my head all day as I was wearing this. Floating ambergris through the forest, bobbing up and down, and you're looking up at this ambergris just floating by, and, you know, maybe imparting little ambergris gifts on you as it flies by. But that's the feeling. Foresty, winter greeny. There is this winter green-like vibe. Big pine forest, not as sappy. And the other difference between Filin Agil, and this is another very important distinction, because many people would say, if I already have Filin Agil, do I need a bottle of Spell 125? Well, probably no, but it's not redundant, okay? The reason it's not redundant is I've always said that Filin Agil reminds me of if you stuck your hand in sap and you were like, oh, that's just, you know, so disgusting, right? You pull your hand back and that sap is sticky on your hands, right? And in the distance, you get that clean, big, open sky. But in the distance, there's a fire, okay? And you can detect the smoke from the fire, right? There's no smoke fire in Spell 125, and there's very little of that piney sap. There is resins, okay? But there's very little of that piney sap because you're given this high-quality ambergris, and you're given this Omani green frankincense. And the Omani green frankincense that I smell here, there's only one frankincense fragrance that I've ever smelled that comes close to this kind of green, clean frankincense. And it's actually this perfume. It's a very rare and hard to find fragrance, but it's called J. Casanova Pour Homme. There's a beautiful, fresh, unlit frankincense in this. Also very green. And it just kind of reminded me of it. I was trying to think if I could think of a single frankincense scent that reminded me of Spell 125. That's the only one that came to mind. No one talks about this. This is lost to history. This house is a long gone house. The only reason I was able to source a bottle of this is thanks to my good friend Anuj at Enchante. But as you can see, I'm talking about some amazing fragrances in regards to Spell 125. I mentioned Jedi. There is something, you know, that connects Jedi and Spell 125. Probably Filin Agil is the closest, but also the frankincense connection of J. Casanova Pour Homme will also kind of get you in the ballpark, if you will. Now, excuse me, there is a black hemlock note that is listed as well. And you can see it right here. It says black hemlock. And black hemlock is supposedly a poisonous note, which brings the whole Book of the Dead Spell 125 thing full circle. And there is a black hemlock note in this little bad boy. And this is called Ormond Jane Man from Ormond Jane from the early 2000s. I think 2004. And black hemlock is a note that is used here as well. This is a very classy, I mean, it's kind of a boring scent. If you're into challenging fragrances, this is very wearable, very, you know, office friendly, very, I don't want to use the word posh, but it does have a little high class feel to it. I think Giza Schoen made this. And it is, I mean, if you're into easy to wear fragrances, this is very nice. I get a little bit bored of this, but it is still nice. And apparently there is a black hemlock, you know, there's a black hemlock heart note in here as well. So interesting little comparisons I kind of thought of as the day went on. I just thought I'd bring up to you because honestly, there's very little that I can say about this to add to the fragrance. This is usually my videos go on and on and on, right? I don't have very much to say about this other than that it's amazing. And, you know, I was thinking about the ambergris. You know what it kind of reminds me of? Outside of ambergrisses floating in a forest, which sound insane, but it's all my brain could kind of think of, is imagine a ghost ship travels from England to America, right? And when you witness the ghost ship entering from the sea, you know, it just kind of emerges out of a fog, right? And attached to the ship, like barnacles, are ambergris pieces. And it traveled all the way from England to America, let's say, and the ambergris like soaked up like a sponge pieces of the sea along the way. So you get this like green seaweed kelp thing going on, you know, but little bits and pieces of the sea, the ambergris sucked in along its journey. And by the time you get a piece of that ambergris off of this ghost ship and you smell it, it's got this, it has this green, so the note that I used is medicinal. There's something medicinal in this, almost something, and I think that medicinal aspect was supposed to represent maybe something a little evil. You know, they talked about in her little breakdown, a sliver of the underworld shadows, okay? And I was thinking about this, I was thinking while smelling this about this medicinal, especially in the first 30 minutes to an hour, it really lingers. There's this medicinal undercurrent of, you know, camphor. That's it. Like this camphorous, you know, feeling to the greenness. But it's contrasted by that clean Omani frankincense, green frankincense, unlit frankincense, okay? Think about that. That's the way I want you to imagine the frankincense. Not burning in the background like Fila Nagil, but unlit. Unlit green frankincense. Maybe there's some vetiver in here too. That's the thing. I think vetiver maybe is the missing piece, which would not surprise me at all if there was vetiver in spell 125, even though it's not listed. And that camphoraceous medicinal aspect almost reminds me of smelling eucalyptus. If you've ever smelled eucalyptus from Creed's Royal Mayfair, it has this green camphor-like medicinal, almost like essential oil, you know, eucalyptus essential oil smell. And it's here, you know, it's definitely here. Although there's no eucalyptus listed, something maybe about the mixture of the stone pine, black hemlock, green sakura frankincense with ylang ylang. And the ylang ylang doesn't come across as, usually ylang ylang comes across as very like custardy, you know, almost like you're taking a spoon and dipping it into vanilla or banana custard, right? Imagine yellow banana custard, and you dip it in and it has that custard-like quality. That's usually the texture and feeling of ylang ylang, the floral. It's not like that here at all, and I think it's just the way it's dosed. I think it's slightly dosed to give it just a little bit of a feel. The last thing that I want to mention is there is this cooling aspect to the perfume, okay? So almost like when you apply icy hot on your body, right? On a sore muscle or something, you get that camphor cooling feel. This fragrance has this cooling aspect, which is why, even though when I wear this, I imagine the forest that I'm standing in to be in winter. I don't know why. I always imagine it in winter with these type of fragrances. Ditto for Fila Nagil. This is a winter scent for me. Although I think it could be worn in summer. I mean, I wear anything, anytime. I think most appropriate is winter. And I would feel the same way about Spell 125. But because it has that camphorous, cooling, medicinal, property to the fragrance, this might work very well in summer, but I know it would work well in fall and winter. And that green pine, that clean, unlit, very high quality. The frankincense in here smells very high quality. I love frankincense. It's almost like a royal or a holy note for some reason. I just imagine this. I imagine amazing occasions of, royal weddings gone from the year, in the Middle East and Rome, and how they just burned frankincense for days. And I love frankincense, and I love those Middle Eastern fragrances that use very high quality frankincense. This competes with the best frankincense fragrances I've ever smelled. And the last thing is the dry down. Okay, so this fragrance does change. The first 2 or 3, maybe even 4 hours, you're not going to think it changes very much. But all of a sudden, once you hit about 4.5 to 5 hours, the fragrance shifts, and all of that camphoraceous, cooling, mentholated, green, sappy, sparkly. The ambergris does add this sparkly facet to it, by the way. With the black hemlock, it all seems to just disappear. It just, like smoke, and you just blow it, and you can all of a sudden see the ship coming in my previous analogy. And you are just left with one of the most beautiful sandalwoods I've ever smelled. Absolutely stunning. Stunning sandalwood in the dry down. Amazing sandalwood. Very calming, very introspective. There's really something about this sandalwood that just kind of takes the pressure off your shoulders. Everything melts away, when you smell this sandalwood. And it is that good. I mean, it really is. This is an amazing fragrance again. And the house is, honestly, if she did, just to give you an example, if she did what Roja Dove did and added a gold plaque to the front of her bottle and took this cap and made it into something like this, she could easily sell her fragrances for $500 for 50 ml. Easily. The quality is right there. It's there. To me, there is no increase in quality for something like this versus this. It's just the perceived quality increase and the price points and stuff like that. If you price this at $500, I mean, if people are willing to pay $500 for this, they should be willing to pay $500 for this or this. Or this, or Spell 125, or any of these other Papillons I've talked about. Tobacco Rose is one of the most amazing rose fragrances I've ever smelled. And I did a video on Angelique already. That doesn't get enough love. It's beautiful. Stunning mimosa and iris. And the way she uses iris is Hera. That's a full bottle worthy perfume for me, even though that was made for her daughter. I would wear that. That was made for her daughter's wedding, and I would wear that. That could be a signature scent. It's that beautiful. So I just never have come across anything from this house that has given me anything but the utmost, the utmost appreciation and respect for the ingredients and the blend. And then when you think about the fact that, when you think about the fact that she's a self-trained perfumer, she did this on her own. She was ready to give up, she basically said in her interview. If it didn't go right at a certain point, she was second guessing herself for a little bit there. Does she have the right stuff to create these type of perfumes? And so, I mean, I am absolutely in love with the house. I'm a huge fan. And if you can get your nose on Spell 125, I would highly recommend it. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts. If you think I'm correct, if you think I'm crazy, if you think the breakdown I've mentioned is good or bad, and what you think about the house, because I think the House of Papillon is one of the best value for money niche houses out there right now. And to prove that point, actually, while we were talking on our interview, and you'll hear her bring this up, or maybe I brought it up, or maybe I brought it up on another video, but this fragrance right here, when you spray it on Anubis, it wears very oily. It almost feels like you're applying an extrait, but it's not an extrait. It's an eau de parfum. And she basically said that it is the highest concentration that an EDP can be without being an extrait. So this is basically like 25%, just under 25% perfume oils. You know, Roja, speaking of just going back to Roja, because this is a great precedent of why I say value for money is amazing with the House of Papillon. He used to put out these eau de parfums, and he still does sometimes. I think he did it with just a fragrance called Manhattan recently that he put out. I've never smelled Manhattan, eau de parfum, or extrait, but in some of his previous releases, what he would do is he would release the eau de parfum, and this is about, $250 for whatever, $260 for 50 ml. He would then discontinue the eau de parfum and release an extrait at double the price, $500, right? $500 US. And she easily could have added 0.1% perfume oil more to this, called it an extrait, doubled the price. No one would have questioned her. No one. But she's keeping this at, this is one of the best, I think, bang for your bucks you can find in the niche world. Anubis is stunning. But I just bring up the value proposition because instead of going the other way and trying to, finagle it to where she can make even more money off of it, she's kept it at an eau de parfum, and she's kept the price lower because of that, for us, for the fans, for the people that consume her fragrances. So Liz Moores gets a big standing ovation from me. She gets a big shout out for stuff like that. And every time I smell one of these, every single time I am impressed. Every single time it's full bottle worthy. Every single time I have yet to come across one Liz Moores creation where I thought, this is not full bottle worthy. So let me know what your thoughts are. Again, my videos are usually longer. This will be shorter because that's just, it's straight and to the point. I really don't have anything else to say about it. If you know fragrances like Filin Agil, Arso, I think this is Spell 125 is in that range, but I don't think it's redundant by any stretch. So let me know what your thoughts are. Love to hear your thoughts and see your faces in the comments. Thank you for the support, everyone. And cheers, guys, and look forward to seeing you later with another video. Bye now.